Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. I'm back. Gonna be back. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see a little bit of a different background here. Yes, I have safely made it to Phoenix, just touched down, said, you know what? I'm not going to have dinner. I'm not going to meet up with friends. I'm not going to meet up with coaches. No. I am here for the Final Four. One, undisclosed location. Can't let those Purdue fans know where Torres is. Not very happy with me right now. But I wanted to quickly do a quick college hoops transfer portal update. It just feels like even since Monday's update, there has been so much that has happened that I would be remiss if I didn't jump on and just talk about some of the big news, because boy, oh boy, we're getting some major commitments and some big name players have entered the portal just in the last day or so. So when we did our last update, one of the players who had just entered was Vlad Golden from Florida Atlantic. Bring it up, you didn't think he was going to be the last player from FAU, and on Tuesday night, news that I don't think should be all that surprising, but still very significant. John L. Davis entered the transfer portal from Florida Atlantic. If you watched the Owls last year during the NCAA tournament, you know this guy was among their best players. Don't want to dismiss Elijah Martin. Don't want to dismiss Vlad Golden. But John L. Davis is a star. 6'4" guard. I think he plays bigger than his size. But first off, stats speak for themselves, and I'm not a box score watcher. I watch the games. But 18 points per game, 41% three-point shooter. Like I said, I think he's he plays bigger than 6'4". Finishes well on the rim, averages 6 rebounds per game. And here's the other thing for people who say, oh, it's Florida Atlantic, they got hot, how good are they, whatever. He played some of his best games. By the way, if you're saying that about Janelle Davis, it means that you probably haven't paid that close attention, but played some of his best games of the season against the best competition that Florida Atlantic has faced all year this past season. 35 points. He was the best player on the floor when they played Arizona in Vegas in December, that iconic game on a Saturday there, kind of around Christmas time. Oh, by the way, Texas A&M, they were pretty good. They played in the NCAA tournament. They could have beaten Houston in the round of 32. 26 points for Janelle Davis against them. And oh, by the way, on top of that, 24 against College of Charleston as well. So I'll update my college hoops transfer portal rankings of players at AaronTorresOnline.com here in the coming days. But let me just say this. You start talking about impact guys, I think he is at the top of the list. Now, what becomes interesting is he actually going to play college basketball next year. Remember, this is a kid who entered the NBA draft last year, nearly declared, nearly stayed in, decides to come back to Florida Atlantic. He comes back this year. They have, pretty good season. They make the tournament at large bid. But he has also declared for the NBA draft again. He's done 4 years of college hoops. You wonder if maybe he just feels like it is time. Obviously, I don't really think him going back to FAU is realistic. And of course, if he stays in college hoops, he will be pursued by everybody. The big name, obviously, to watch, can Michigan and Dusty May convince him to come to Michigan and be the face of that rebuild? I'm not sold that that would happen. I could see him going a lot of different places if he does come back to college. But John L. Davis from FAU officially in the portal. And boy, oh boy, is that big news. On top of Janelle Davis, Jordan Pope, this to me is one of the more underrated portal entrants of the last couple days. So this kid, 6'2" guard, played at Oregon State. You probably didn't watch Oregon State. This kid was a stud, okay? 17 points per game, 3.5 assists, 37% from three. By the way, if you follow college hoops, you know he hit an iconic buzzer beater against the Arizona Wildcats. Again, everybody went off against Arizona. I don't know what that says about Tommy Lloyd. But Jordan Pope, to me, is a really good guard. And listen, changing landscape of college hoops, Oregon State is going to the WCC. That's clearly not what he signed up for when he committed to the Beavers. And so now he is looking for his next college option. We'll be curious to see. He's from the Oakland area. He played at Prolific Prep, that great prep school up in Northern California. By the way, I remember watching him work out as a sophomore. On his team was Jalen Green, who's in the NBA, Coleman Hawkins from Illinois, Namari Burnett, who was a McDonald's All-American. So it shows you how deep that team was. But I'll be curious what he decides to do. I think on the one hand, he's a very talented player. I think on the other, like a lot of these guys, he is really at his best with the ball in his hands. And so because of it, he's got to find the right fit where they give him the ball, they let him cook. He's kind of a combo guard. He creates for others, but he obviously takes on a big scoring load as well. So I don't know what the plan is. He's a high major guard, in my opinion, and a very good high major guard. But that one is one, it's kind of got to be the right fit. He's going to be at his best when the ball in his hands. Curious to see what happens with him. Let's keep it going. Another big name. This one entered on Wednesday morning as I was at the airport going to Phoenix. Great Osabor, obviously of Utah State, Mountain West Player of the Year, decides to transfer from Utah State. Listen, this is not a surprise in any way, shape, or form. But listen, Utah State, incredible year, first year under Danny Sprinkle. And so, of course, when Danny Sprinkle leaves, you expect this kid to enter the transfer portal. This was a kid, by the way, it is worth noting, that began his career at Montana State, followed Danny Sprinkle to Utah State. So he clearly has an allegiance to Danny Sprinkle. And when Danny Sprinkle leaves, I'm not surprised that he decides that he is going to see what his options are. Player that is testing the NBA draft waters. I'll be honest, I don't really see him as an NBA player, at least not yet. 6'8", was really good in the Mountain West. As I said, 18 points per game, 9 boards, but he's 6'8", low post player, doesn't shoot threes, shot, let's see here. Let's make sure I have this stat right. Shot 14 on the year, 21% on those shots. So it goes without saying, like, NBA is not in his immediate future. We'll be curious, obviously, does he try to follow Danny Sprinkle to Washington State? I'll be honest. I like him. I don't know that I love him at the power conference level, especially because, remember, Washington is going to the Big Ten. And so you look at that kid, is that the perfect spot for him? I'll be blunt. I think he can play at the high major level. I think the Mountain West is kind of where he belongs. Can dominate in that league. Obviously, the thought would be to come back to Utah State to play for its new coaching staff. Don't know what he's going to do. Interesting name that has entered the portal. Really quickly, a couple other news and notes. We're going to get to a couple commitments in a minute. Thought it was interesting, though, that Jalen Blackman, the 6'3" guard from Stetson, who entered the portal a few weeks ago, he's another one. He has also declared for the NBA draft. Jalen Blackman actually put out a list through Jeff Borzello on Wednesday morning, has a bunch of schools that have reached out, including Kansas and Kentucky. Think that's noteworthy. We're going to get to the Kansas side of things in a minute, but I keep telling you with Kentucky, it is obvious they are prioritizing probably a big with Cliff Omoyori from Rutgers, and then they're prioritizing a veteran guard, and I don't blame them. We don't know about Reed Shepard. We don't know about DJ Wagner, who will be back, who will not, and I don't know that Travis Perry and Boogie Fland is enough as a backcourt. So we'll be curious to see Jalen Blackman. His father played at Kentucky, so there are obvious ties there. His father's James Blackman Jr., older brother, son of James Blackman Jr., played at Indiana. We'll be curious. It seems like Kentucky is prioritizing guards. Went after Michi Johnson. He ends up committing to Ohio State. Went after, a few others, the Jaden Ivey Curry kid who committed to Virginia Tech. They are looking for a veteran guard. It is apparent. Jalen Blackman would be a very interesting addition there. 21.5 points per game at Stetson. I think I said it. How about this? 43 points in the conference championship game. Really quickly, we got to get to some commitments because there are a couple coaches that are putting in work in the portal. And the first one is that guy, Bill Self. Okay. Shout out to Bill Self. We talked about it a week ago. Bill Self went on the podium and said, we have decided. We decided a month ago to start looking towards next year. And everyone said, oh, it's injuries. It's not. No. It is very obvious that he decided a month ago, we are focusing on next year. And I am not going into a season with a roster like the one that I just had. Preseason number 1 in America, by the way. But they certainly didn't have any depth behind Kevin McCullough when he got hurt, etc. Hunter Dickinson, I think, was okay, whatever. Bring it up because Bill Self, second major portal commitment in as many days, or is it 3 days? Because Tuesday night, Zeke Mayo, the guard from South Dakota State, ended up being a Jayhawk. Listen, this one's not surprising. We said this as soon as Zeke Mayo went into the portal. He is from Lawrence, Kansas originally. And so we knew when he entered, this was probably a spot that made sense for him. It's worth noting too, like his senior year was that COVID year where coaches weren't allowed to go out on campus or weren't allowed to go out recruit. And so I do wonder if this was a kid that was just misevaluated because he goes to South Dakota State. And I'm not saying he would have been in Kansas out of high school, but he's a really good player. Goes to South Dakota State, 19 points per game this year, shoots a very, very high percentage from beyond the three-point arc, 39% from beyond the three-point arc, 5.7 rebounds per game, 3.5 assists per game. And listen, I think he's kind of that guard that I'm not sure Kansas had this year. They had DeJuan Harris. Kevin McCullough to me is kind of a wing, but a guy that can create, can get to the basket, can create for others, can kind of do it all. Not a point guard, more of a combo guard, can play on the ball, can play off the ball. I like this kid a lot. Not surprised he ended up at Kansas. And Bill Self is doing work because they also added Florida's Riley Kugel just a few days ago. Finally, last one. Let's go ahead and give credit where it's due. How about our guy, Pat Kelce, the head coach at Louisville? Okay. So I'll be honest, I just the way things broke, I never had a time to do a reaction to Pat Kelce taking the Louisville job. I thought he was a good hire. I didn't love the process to get there because he looked like the 7th, 8th, 9th choice, which he probably was. Didn't love that it didn't appear that Louisville had any sort of backup plan once Dusty May said no. But ultimately, all that matters is, did you get the right guy or not? And I think Pat Kelce, young, energetic, built 2 different programs into, at the mid-major level, NCAA tournament teams. So he's got the blueprint to build this thing up. And I think he's going to be good at Louisville. Bring it up because what did we see on Wednesday morning? Terrence Edwards Jr., guard, big guard, played at James Madison this year, was the Sun Belt Player of the Year for James Madison. Remember, James Madison won 31 games this year. Terrence Edwards was their best player. He was the best player in the league. Well, he commits to Louisville, okay? So this is a kid, phenomenal player. By the way, did it against the high major teams. 24 points against Michigan State in a season opening win. 14 points against Wisconsin. 13 points against Duke in the game that James Madison ended up losing. But good guard, combo guard, can play on the ball, can play off the ball, but he's got good size, 6'6", and just really like this first move for Pat Kelce. Well, he's not the first move. He brought a couple kids from Charleston, but the first major move outside of the Charleston kids that he brought, you're bringing in a guy that's a winner, that's a veteran. You're bringing him into a place where he can come in and play right away. And listen, I put it out on Twitter and I got criticized because I get criticized for everything these days. But listen, what did I say on Twitter? I said, look, to me, this guy in one just whatever, in 1 week, this guy just did more work in the portal than freaking Kenny Payne did in 2 years. Kenny Payne brought in some nice players, Trey White last year, etc. Sky Clark. I think this is the best player that's committed to Louisville in the last 3 off seasons. Pat Kelce does it in the first week. All right, I think that's it for this little quick YouTube reaction segment. I got stuff to do. I'm in Phoenix. Got to be careful. Got to watch out for those Purdue fans. Be back. Full episode of the Aaron Torres pod tomorrow. We'll figure out the time then. But if you're not subscribed to this channel, you see my big hand right there? Click subscribe. We'll be back